to really complete your multi-app, you're going to need an icon so that it doesn't have that generic one. And you have many unique images that you could use for this. So I'm going to show you, like, you could even go back to your vector art checkpoint, which you turned in several different images. I could use these cherries, for example. Nobody else has these cherries, so that would be fine for an icon. So let me just show you how that might work. I would want to open in a new window so I can download this original. And then it's a PNG, so I could open it. Now you could get it from your project folder. That would be ideal. But I just wanted to point out that your work, if you turned it in, is available to you anywhere that you can get into Google Classroom. This house image, for example, this would be a unique house, and I could turn that into an icon as well. You've also got your 3D models. So I would use probably this Blender image or even this SketchUp image right here. This would work just fine in order to have a unique icon. So I'll show you how to do that with several different ones. Now I've got this in my downloads folder here. Let's see, downloads. I'm going to open with Photoshop because we need that compression and resizing that we can do here. Now it's true that we do have, let me see if I can dock this right here. We do have transparency, and that used to be a pretty big deal because our Kindle Fires can show that transparency. But newer Android devices recognize that as a problem with visibility, and it just fills in those pixels anyway. So I'm going to fill them in, and you can choose whether you want black or white or maybe even some other color. The important thing to remember is that a lot of times they round off the corners. So you don't really want stuff in the corners because it will cut it off when it's an icon. So what can we do with this image of cherries? Well, we're going to want a 1-to-1 ratio for sure, because that's what the icons are. So you can see that I'll have to actually add on some blank space to these cherries in order for this to work. Doesn't have to be too much because remember it's the corners. If this is a circle, then we might bring that down a little bit so it's fairly centered. So now I've got this right here. Now we want this to be, it won't be transparent when we make it a JPEG, so we can just let it fill that in. We could also add a new layer, put it underneath, and use our bucket tool. Remember, it lives with the gradient tool, and have a color that we just fill in the background. Now red with the cherries, of course, not such a good idea unless you were to, let's say, put an outer glow or something. It would be possible. But let me see what kind of colors I could choose for my paint bucket. A little bit small here, so color. Maybe I can choose my fill color as black instead. Go to my layers and use my paint bucket tool and try and fill that in with black. So that would actually be kind of nice right there. Maybe even add that outer glow. So that would be the blending options. I could try something like a stroke, or I think a glow would actually be rather nice. Outer glow. And there's green, it's kind of an olivey, so maybe a golden glow around my cherries here. Would need to increase my spread and my size in order to get it to be a nice soft glow that doesn't get too close to them. So that would be possible. I think we could probably leave it off. With the black, it really does stand out as well. So now what do? Well, we want to export this file and export as, not as a PNG, but as a JPEG. Bring that compression down. It does not need to be super high quality, and our size is really high resolution because that's what we wanted for that assignment. But we could bring this down to maybe 300 by 300. Looks like they weren't locked together, so let me make it 300 by 300. No, that's the canvas size. This is not working so good. Let me try this again. So I'm going to file and export as a JPEG. Image size, there we go, not canvas size. 300 We'll change to 300 and we're down to 17K. And then if we bring this down a little more, we're down to just 7K, which is appropriate for an icon. If you want to be a little bit higher quality, it's just going to be super small. We're going to be seeing it on the screen. It's going to look something like that. So even the top of the cherry stems becomes not visible. But that would definitely, you'd be able to spot yours from a mile away. If this was a little higher, 512 by 512 would be a pretty normal size for icons. It's still only 13 kilobytes. So I would go with something like this. And I'll export that. And what am I going to call it? Well, I'm going to keep it simple, like icon cherries. And I'm going to put it in my App Inventor project folder, so I'll be able to test that out. And then that, of course, gets uploaded. If I go to my MIT App Inventor, let me see if I can find it here. You would go to the properties, project properties, icon, and it will let you upload directly from here. So you don't have to upload it first, but I've got my icon cherries JPEG, and now when I install that, that is what we're going to see for this particular app. Now I recommend only doing that once you have an app where all the buttons work and all your apps are there, and that way you know when it's ready to stay on that device.